All Three Beards Media podcasts originate from the Gravitate Co-working Studio, sponsored by Revelton Distilling Company.
Hey, what's up, everyone? We are finally back after the new year, coming to you live from the Gravitate Co-working Studio, sponsored by Revelton Distillery. And Happy New Year! It's been a hot minute since we've been on, but we have been on the hardwood, we have been working, and we have a lot to bring you tonight. So before we start, just wanted to take a quick minute to support and remember Perry as they go through, kind of the healing process of those terrible events that happened a couple weeks ago. So, we, as a crew, we decided to wear blue wristbands right there to support the Perry community. It hit home for us. So wanted to show our support and just know that they have a lot of people standing behind them. So,
Yeah, that was, I'm sure we're all saying that in the state right now, pretty close to home. And a place that we've reffed generally every year. And, Sam, your dad, knows quite a few folks up there. And I still haven't found confirmation, but I'm pretty confident when Dan's daughter Claire was playing when Perry girls were really good. I think he was an assistant or something. So I did know him a little bit too. So really unfortunate, but a hero at the same time. So
yeah, absolutely. When you're a teacher at a school every day and something like that comes up on the news, you just, the heart goes out to everybody, the students and staff and parents. You never want to have to go through something like that. And, our hearts go out to the community of Perry.
Yep.
Absolutely. Yep. A lot of support there. So, so since we've been off for quite a while, let's recap the last episode.
That was all the way back on December 20th, wasn't it?
Yeah. So Jim had fool's rules over the back. Is that a call?
Well, it is not a call. I mean, they might have a call where somebody was on somebody's back and when we have a push, but it's funny because there are a few people out there listening to our podcast, because the couple games that I went to watch Melcher Dallas play, I had couple people look at me and say, "Hey, I'm not going to yell over the back tonight." So that was kind of nice that people are listening and paying attention to what we're saying.
Yeah,
I definitely had the most feedback that we've had so far based just on that part, like on Facebook and people talking to me, over the back. They were like, "Oh my gosh, yes, finally somebody's talking about this." And even on Facebook, somebody then was like, "Well, it's still a foul." Yes, the contact is a foul potentially, but over the back is not a thing.
Yeah.
So still have education to have on that one.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You're even, like I say, you can tell people about what the rules are and what the calls are, and they're still going to have their own opinion. So it is what it is.
Yep.
And Ben, this one happens to you all the time, where it for some reason always happens to you, where you got two players going up for a ball, you got a jump ball, and then the player in front rips it down, and they're all over their back. Well, get them off. No, we had a jump ball at the top.
Right.
So,
and the action after that, as long as it's not violent, isn't a foul after that. We have the jump ball, and that's that. We're moving on. So.
Yep. And then another popular Fools Rules, we had Kevin Williamson on from the Earlham boys coach, and we talked block charge.
Yep.
That's a popular one.
Yeah. I had a real positive feedback on Kevin being on too. And I think it was a good, refreshing segment to have a coach on to kind of discuss those things with us and have that kind of back and forth. So I really, really enjoyed that. So.
Yeah, he did a great job. Very, very professional. You can tell he loves what he does. And it was nice to have him on and talk about, coach's perspective officiating. So I thought he did a great job.
And then thinking back on those clips, they're so close. They're literally 50-50. And it's just, you make the call in the heat of the moment. And
right. And we talked about it. Some of them didn't even agree on, because it's tough sometimes. I mean, it's to make sure they got legal guarding position, who initiated the contact, so, some of them are just bang, bang, and you can watch it sometimes 10 times after it and still say, well, I'm not sure about this one, but you got to make the call at the heat of the moment and move on.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I think, something similar we'll talk about, shot clock, right? Where we have the shot clock go off and we have a shot that counts or doesn't count, and we have to figure that out in a split second, maybe just with the horn, maybe with our eyes looking at the clock, or maybe the LED, lights around the backboard if they have that. But without the benefit of a monitor, it's a lot harder than you think, like a lot of these things are. So we're trying to get it right, but it's hard sometimes.
It is. Yep. So we've been off a little bit for Christmas. You guys do anything for Christmas break besides Jim have 17?
Here it comes. I knew it.
How many did you have? Because it seemed like 17.
It was. Let's see, 1, 2, 4 of them. But just a couple of them had to be moved back. One Lisa was sick. We had to move it, so you guys counted it as 2. It was really only 1. My mother-in-law, we went over to her house. We actually moved that one 3 times because of the weather and that. So, it's just.
So we're getting up there. It's like 8 or 9.
No, it's only 4 really though. But 4 times we actually celebrated it.
I'm almost certain that added up to roughly 17, because every time we tried to add a game from a reschedule, you were busy. I got a Christmas. So
what you guys are saying is that you don't like that I celebrated the birth of Christ that many times?
We are not making this about politics or religion, Jim.
Okay. I just was asking, because if you're going to give a crap about it, it's coming back at you.
But I am glad, Jim, that your birthday was this month, and instead of celebrating for one day, you decided to celebrate the whole entire month. It is the month of Jim.
Yeah, well, and it's not over yet. I just want you to remember that. So when we go, next place, maybe you guys give me a gift this time.
It's in the mail.
Jim,
yes.
I think a good gift maybe for you is.
You think we should take a traveling one?
Just knowing where that is at every single time, I think, is the gift that keeps on giving.
Oh, so I think we kind of discussed it a little bit before, but these guys think it's funny. Most every place we go into, they kind of search for the AED or ask the AD, the athletic director, where it's at. they like to make fun of me because I've had 2 heart attacks. I mean, I get it. It's funny.
It's not funny, Jim. We just care about you, and we want to make sure you're safe.
Yes, I understand that. I'm glad you guys are looking out for my health and well-being.
And for the record, Jim, I'm good for compressions, mouth to mouth. Sorry.
Hey! I'm just going to tell you right now, if it, mouth to mouth, if that happens and you don't have a mouth guard, let me die. Just saying.
You heard it from him, ladies and gentlemen.
Stay away from me.
This is really taking a turn.
Let's move back to basketball.
Hey, real quick though, Christmas. Shout out to Three Beards. We got some cool merch here from them. We appreciate them and supporting us. We got some koozies, and Jim, you made a sweatshirt for us too with our 3 blind refs on there. So I'm anxious to get that on and going. So, and we got that over there. So
yes.
Where did
we're getting the merch.
Where did you get those sweatshirts from, Jim?
A local lady, Tiffany Schrader in town. She does all kinds of t-shirts, sweatshirts, all kind of stuff. And I sent her the logo, and she put it on the sweatshirt for me. So
cool.
Great job. Tiffany does a great job on lots of stuff. So
awesome. Thank you, Tiffany.
Love
Looks
it.
great. For sure. Let's recap the last 2 weeks of games. We have quite a few.
Whew.
Well, sort of. There were a lot of dates.
Should have had a lot more, yes.
Well, yeah. Looks like a lot on paper.
Okay, so December 21st. So that was the Thursday before Christmas, the day after our last podcast. Really good set of matchups, DCG and Norwalk. I think all 4 boys and girls teams in that night were ranked, if I remember correctly. But girls game was tight for 3 quarters, kind of got away at the end, but the boys game was fantastic. Really kind of came down to the last few seconds in that game. So that was a fun one to go out on before kind of Christmas break hit, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of alluded to it too. We had a situation with the shot clock in the boys game where we're clicking down the seconds. And I think it was coming from my area. It looked like a shot went up and missed the rim, but a player caught it kind of right underneath the rim and put it right back up. So to try to decide whether that counted or not, because the shot clock and the horn went off all right around then, was close. And looking at it on tape, man, it's 50-50. So, I mean, I guess it's right in probably half the gym and wrong in the other half of the gym. But just one of those things without a monitor, it's hard to kind of know if you got it. So,
yeah.
Agreed. One thing that, we're talking about last second shots and that. And if you see officials in a game doing this stuff, pointing up in the air, they're not like wanting you to look up. They're letting each other know that the clock is running down, that a lot of times it's under a minute, or when we get the shot clock and we get under 10 seconds on the shot clock, we're just trying to give everybody a visual reminder on our crew that, hey, make sure, if the ball is not in your area, that we have eyes on the shot clock so we can, determine whether the shot was good or the game clock, just so we all are aware, hey, time's about up. So if you see us doing that, that's what's going on.
Yep. Or if we give one of these, we're going to have 2 horns. So say the shot clock resets at 35 and there's 35.8 on the game clock. Just know that first horn is going to be the shot clock and not the game clock. So just to keep your eyes on that.
And we've had it happen, being second year of shot clock, that when that shot clock goes off, the horn goes off, they haven't got a shot up, and people stop. It does not stop the game. That's we continue unless we know that it's a violation. The other team didn't possess, or if the other team didn't possess it after that shot didn't hit the rim, then we've got a shot clock violation. But other than that, that horn does not stop the game.
Yep.
Were you Go ahead, Ben.
Go ahead. No, you.
No, I was just going to say something about Jim. So it's
Again?
Go ahead.
Wow.
I feel like that has gotten less and less as teams have gotten used to the shot clock. I mean, it can still happen, but it feels like everybody's adjusting to that a little bit better now, for sure.
Yeah, agreed.
January 2nd, I worked with Tim Osterhaus and Brian Abel. We did Urbandale Dowling. It was a really clean night. Both games were competitive, but like I feel like it might have been even in the boys' game we had a quarter with no fouls. Like,
wow,
yeah, it went fast. So that was fun.
Nice. Nice.
And then the 5th, January 5th, we went to Marshalltown. That was my first time there.
Mine too, yeah.
Jim?
That was probably, I'm going to say 3rd or 4th for me being there.
Okay. That was against Ames, and that roundhouse, that's a pretty cool place. A lot of history there, and their little I would call it like trophy room, basically. It's kind of it reminds me a little bit of
almost.
Yeah. That has glass that you can look at from the outside and the inside. That was pretty cool, and just kind of that atmosphere was neat too. So I'm glad we went there.
Yeah, it's a lot like if anybody's been to Des Moines Lincoln. I think the buildings are very similar. Probably more than likely built by the same contracting company or whatever, but they're very similar. It's really neat. It's round. There's two other ones that I know of that are much smaller that are very similar. It's South Tama and who's it? BCL UW at Conrad. So they're really neat little old gyms that they've really Marshalltown in the last 10 years has done a lot to improve that. But before it was run down and that, and now they've really done a nice job. Put a new floor, new bleachers. Really looks nice.
Yeah, it's a cool place to go.
Yeah.
Then we kind of get into the blizzards. The 9th, we were supposed to be at Elkhorn. Exira, Elkhorn, Kimballton against Woodbine would have been a good night, both games, and that got canceled by the blizzard. And then the same thing on the 12th, that Friday, we're supposed to be at Des Moines North, and that kind of against Hoover, and that got postponed by the second blizzard of the week. So I think at that point, at least kind of out at my house, we were up to about 24 inches of snow. So that kind of starts, we kind of get January is a little bit of a drag because, semesters might end, kids have tests, we're coming back from holidays. Now we get weather and everybody's having to reschedule and cram a lot of games into a short time, with less practices. So it just it's almost like the doldrums of January before we get to February and playoffs. So that kind of started us, nice to have a week off again, but now we're paying for it a little bit. So
yeah, just to talk about that, our girls team, Melcher Dallas, they're playing tonight in the conference tournament, and they have not played till tonight. They hadn't played since January 5th. So they've had a ton of time off, and that's never good for a team. And that, in fact, I watched the first quarter on Facebook Live. Somebody had it, and it was, you could tell both teams had not played much because it was 5-4 at the end of the first quarter. So, but shout out to our girls team too. Hopefully they're on their way to moving on to the next round of the conference tournament. Our boys lost first round, but they'll be playing tomorrow night in a consolation bracket. So.
Awesome.
Cool.
So just to I wanted to throw up this pick. This is a road over for me.
Wow.
This is how much snow we had. So it took till I think Sunday of that week for us to be able to get out to the highway and get anywhere. So
Jeez.
Wow.
I think a lot of the state was dealing with similar stuff, but this one was one where I was just like, holy cow, what a storm, what a week.
Been crazy. Yeah, it was crazy.
So then we finally got to work together again the 16th, I guess. So that would have been last Tuesday up at North Polk against Carroll. And Jim, kind of remnants a little bit from the blizzard. The roads took a long time to get cleaned up. Sam was a little bit late I mean, I don't know if that's normal. Okay, it is. And then we ran into there was an accident on 3580 as we were trying to get up to North Polk. So we were supposed to meet Jim at one of our spots up in Ankeny to go north, and didn't happen. So Jim had to drive himself. Jim, will you please tell your aunt that we actually like to ride with you so she doesn't yell at us on Facebook again?
Well, I'm not so sure that you really like to ride with me. I'm not even sure these guys.
I'm not so sure either.
I think they made the excuse of being behind the accident, and then they call me and I'm waiting a little bit longer. We call back and, I just decide, well, I'll just go ahead and go instead of them stopping off, to pick me up. And so, I got to sit around for about 20 minutes to a half hour by myself in my vehicle. And, so then I just went up there. So, Aunt Marilyn, sometimes that's the way they are to me. I can't do anything about it. They're not very nice sometimes. So say what you want to about them on Facebook.
We saw you turn into the parking lot. We were just lagged back about 300
just waiting
feet.
behind me, weren't you? Just like,
Yeah.
Hey, wait till he parks first.
That was a good night. Good competitive games there too.
It was.
Yeah. Jim, we had a play. Well, I don't want to ruin Fool's Rules for you.
Yeah, we'll wait
Ruin
for that.
fools.
Okay. We haven't talked about popcorn. And that's because we haven't had popcorn since our last podcast. Not one place. I don't know.
Yeah.
We haven't thought about it, or it's just been different for whatever reason for the last 3 or 4 weeks or whatever it's been. So,
Right.
However, one night out of the blue, some of our listeners, some refs that we've shouted out here, Brent Behrens, Chris Marzen, and Paul Weiss, they texted us after the game and they said they were at Fort Dodge. So I'm going to give their popcorn report, which I thought was nice of them to give. Brent had a 7.8, Chris an 8.5, and Paul had an 8.5. They said the popcorn was fantastic.
Woo, that would have been good.
And they had walking tacos, cookies, candy, protein bars, and shakes. They said the hospitality was A+. So all you refs out there.
They got all of that?
All of that.
Where were they at?
So
At
Fort Dodge. So shout out to Fort Dodge for their spread. That's fantastic.
That is
So,
great.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's our popcorn report, I guess, for this podcast. We'll try to do better.
That was worth a
Going-
mention for sure.
It was. We did get a pizza at North Polk. Their hospitality was also good. So,
Yeah.
so then now we start into some reschedules. The next night, Wednesday, the 17th, we don't normally have games on the 17th. And we don't normally have games at 4:45 in the afternoon, but that's when the reschedule happens. So Sam and I went to North and did the Hoover game with Rich Sukup. So shout out Rich. I know he's probably listening. So always great to rep with him.
It was
Fun
awesome
guy.
to work with Rich again. Yeah.
He didn't drive anywhere, did he?
Let him.
But for you listeners that have heard this story, I think we told it on our first podcast about Rich driving from St. Ed's, and Rich was so he's like, "Is that how it really happened?" And he said, "I listened," and then he's like, "Gosh, that is how it really happened." And so I feel like we need to have Rich on for a segment to relive that. And then there's kind of a part 2, which we had alluded to, but I got more information when we were with Rich about that. So I think it'd be wise to have Rich on and kind of talk through that again.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Rich, you're welcome anytime.
27 years of officiating, and I'll never forget that ride back.
No.
Yep.
Oh, that was
Jim,
fantastic.
that Wednesday, were you celebrating your birthday or Christmas?
That was my birthday.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's right.
that was my
And then we were going to think about having a game on Saturday. It was maybe a reschedule. But what were you doing then?
Saturday?
Celebrating your birthday, if I remember right.
Is that what?
Or wait, or was that your 8th Christmas?
That might have been a Christmas, but I can't. I don't remember Saturday what we did.
Wasn't that just
That's when you know you have too many.
Huh? because I celebrated my birthday again on Sunday with my family, my kids and grandkids.
Okay, Jim. It feels like maybe, we should tell Aunt Marilyn that, maybe you don't want to hang out with us very often.
Yeah, well, hey. I don't know what to say there because it might be true. Just kidding.
I knew it was true.
Just kidding.
I knew it.
All right, the 19th, last Friday, we went to Newton. Hadn't been there in a long, long time. Against Indianola. That was a fun night. Jim had a game, so we had Ben Miles with us. Shout out to Ben.
Yeah.
He's a fantastic young official.
Yes, he is.
Sky's the limit for him. And
Yep.
Sam, wouldn't you call him probably the most relaxed guy on the floor?
Without a doubt. His very first, he had an offensive foul, and the way he signaled it, I was like, there was like a glow around him.
Yeah.
Like he just it was so slow and smooth, yet to the point. And I was like my whistle dropped out of my mouth. I was like, oh my God, that was awesome.
I can't probably do it, but it was just like he waited forever, and then he's like,
Yeah.
it was so smooth.
He reminds.
it was like if I could caption it, he would have been like, "Fight me."
He reminds me of another veteran official. Can you think of who that would be? That's just Mr. Smooth.
Will Dotson.
Oh yeah, Will Dotson. And he points to whatever direction, whatever he calls. It's so smooth that he just looks like he's, it's nothing gets him riled up. Will Dotson, great official. I've worked with him many times. Super guy to talk to. But
One of the best out there.
Yeah, Ben reminds me of Will a lot.
Yeah.
We ought to do a little bit of video of Will, just how smooth he is.
Yeah.
And then when we get to the girls' state tournament and kind of have our little shindig, we got to get video of Garrett Wirtz doing an impression of Will Dotson.
Absolutely.
That is good.
So yeah, good stuff. And then this week, Monday, this was a scheduled date, not a reschedule, but once in a while we'll get an off night. We're down at Creston against Atlantic, and the thing I probably will remember most about that, other than the hospitality, Scott Driscoll's always great to us down there. We had a 50-point scoring game by Colton Rasmussen of Atlantic that night, and that was just incredible. I think he had 50 of their 75, if I remember correctly.
And it was like a quiet 50.
Yeah, Ben said it to us after the game, and he just dropped 50, and I'm like, they have the board up there, and I didn't even pay attention to it, but I was like, wow, didn't realize.
Yeah.
I knew he scored a bunch of points, but boy, I didn't think it was a 50 spot. That was cool.
And how it went down and how I noticed it, like at halftime, I knew he was at 24. I just happened to catch it. So once that caught my eye, I'm like, this could be a pretty big night. So I kept watching occasionally, he only had, I think, 4 in the third quarter and then had like 22 in the fourth. So
I think the only shot he missed in the fourth quarter was one free throw late.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So it's pretty cool to be a part of something like that and see a kid just be unconscious, man. That was fun. And the game was great too. I mean, Creston led a lot of the way. In fact, I think they were up 13 in the third quarter.
Yeah.
And then Colton kind of brought them back, and then they ended up winning by 2 with Creston having a shot at the end to win it too.
Yeah.
So it was
came down. Yeah.
Yep. So that was a lot of fun. And then last night we were supposed to have our normal scheduled game at Des Moines Christian against I-35, and that got canceled again because of ice. I think, Winterset was off, I-35 was off. So I think kind of south and east of Winterset, there were some ice concerns, and I-35 has that policy, I think, of not playing a game when they don't have school. So we lost that game because we have a game the night that it's rescheduled for. So I think officially we've lost 2 games out of all this and had one rescheduled. And I'm sure there'll be some more. So,
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Should we go to halftime break?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Or 7:30.
Yeah, good recap.
Okay. And then, Jim, we'll come back with Fool's Rules right after the break here.
Sounds good.
All right, halftime.
Why take the best corn in the world and make it into fuel when you could make it into whiskey? That's the question that launched Revelton, Iowa's most visible and fastest growing distillery. Owners Rob and Christy Taylor embrace the grain-to-glass philosophy, sourcing ingredients locally and overseeing on-premises production and bottling at their facility in Osceola. One sip, and you'll agree that Revelton's handcrafted whiskeys, gins, and vodkas are the best you've ever tasted. And with the launch of their rye whiskey, made with 100% Iowa-grown rye and corn, and their new bourbon coming soon, there's more Revelton to love than ever. Iowa's own Revelton Distillery. ReveltonDistillery.com. The great thing about working from home is working from home. The worst thing is working from home, especially for face-to-face collaborations with customers and coworkers. And let's face it, coffee shop meetings are neither private nor professional. So skip the trip to Starbs and investigate Gravitate Co-working Space. For more than 10 years, Gravitate has provided large and small office and conference spaces perfect for hosting meetings, workshops, or other events, as well as private phone booths for confidential conversations. Plus, all spaces include secure fiber internet, free coffee, and access to a kitchenette. All you need is your laptop. Gravitate does the rest. And renting space at Gravitate is surprisingly affordable. An hour of office space costs about the same as venti caramel macchiatos and breakfast sandwiches for two. Daily and monthly rates are also available with no long-term commitment. Learn more at gravitatecoworking.com. That's gravitatecoworking.com.
Yes, Jim. I love it.
I love it.
That is perfect.
I'd make a
Did it
little
take you
wardrobe change so I could show that off.
Did it take you the whole break to put that on, or?
Yeah, I'm out of breath right now.
I refilled my drink with lovely Revelton.
Oh,
Oh.
nice.
Where'd you hear about that, Ben?
I just caught it somewhere.
Nice.
Oh, that's cool.
Nah, we love Revelton, man.
Yes, we do.
Their Revelton honey whiskey, man, I could drink that daily. In fact, I pretty much am drinking that daily.
Hey, it's got honey in it.
Yeah. What the heck? It's good stuff.
Shout out Lisa. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Lisa.
On that note, Jim, I believe it's time for Fool's Rules. Here we go.
They fooled me, Jerry.
I love that introduction.
That's good
Me
stuff.
too.
So we're going to talk a little bit about traveling today. Now, you say traveling is really not a fool's rule. People know what it is, but they don't always know what it is. Now, one of the things we had at the North Polk game versus Carroll is a kid from Carroll took off diving for a loose ball on the floor, dove, had the ball, slid, and everybody in the North Polk side wanted traveling. There is no traveling when you dive for a ball and slide until you stop. Then you establish basically a pivot foot. So if you flip over frontwards, backwards, like from back to belly, you have traveling. But he could slide the whole length of the floor if it happened to be that way, and we do not have traveling. And that's one of the misconceptions of traveling. Another one is that we've talked about before is, and this gets called too many times, traveling by some officials, maybe even us. We've done it before, but you have a pivot foot. Everybody should know that. Okay, that's established when we know which pivot foot is established. If they lift that pivot foot, they can do two things before it returns to the floor. They can shoot or pass. And a lot of people, when that person's dribbling and they pick up the pivot foot, right away everybody's yelling traveling on that pivot foot. They've already stepped forward with their front foot. Their back foot's the pivot foot. They lift it up, and everybody wants travel. They can still pass. They can still shoot. If they return it to the floor before they do those two things, then we have travel. So another one that's really hard, and it's just, you really have to watch when someone gathers the ball, meaning that they have complete and full control of it. I talked this too because I think this is one thing a lot of people talk to me about. Caitlin Clark, when she catches and does her 2 steps back, basically, she has not established a pivot foot yet because she is gathering the ball as she's moving backwards. So she hasn't gathered it yet. When the first foot comes down, the second foot comes down, then we have our pivot foot and she shoots the ball. So it's when they gather and have complete control of the ball is when we're looking for a pivot foot. And sometimes that's hard. It's hard to see in that. So, and we have spin moves. We have to watch that foot very carefully on a spin move. Is the pivot foot staying down? Once it goes up, are they shooting the ball? So I just think we have a lot of things in that gambit of traveling that can confuse people. Sometimes it confuses us. Let's be just honest. Sometimes, especially you've got 4 or 5 people in the lane, guys got the ball in there, and you're looking through about 6 different legs trying to see which the pivot foot is. And sometimes it's hard to tell, but we try to get them as right as we can get them.
And officials, that, Jim brings up a good point, especially when we're trying to deal with spin moves, or any of these for that matter, but our center official, can really bail us out because a lot of times the lead is probably looking for contact on this play that maybe is coming to the hoop, and the trail maybe has the drive coming from his or her area, so our center official can be really beneficial in trying to watch those feet in that pivot foot. And a lot of times that's my go-to when a coach asks me, hey, that was travel, why didn't you have it? I said, which one was the pivot foot? And I bet it's 9 times out of 10 they don't know. And that's what we have to decide. And sure, we may miss some of those because, again, it's fast and it's hard to do at times. But if we can keep track of that pivot foot, we're going to probably get them right more often than not.
Yeah,
Yep.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So
Another one too, Jim, that you didn't mention is the Euro step. The 2 big steps looks funny, but a lot of times it's a legal basketball move.
I hear people. I go through Crown Refs on TikTok. If you're a referee and you like to look at that stuff, look up Crown Refs. They have some good stuff, and they talk about that in there about that pivot foot coming. Make sure it's got to come back down to the floor. Lift it up, it's got to come down. But I just think we look at it as soon as that person lifts that pivot foot and doesn't really do anything right away. The pass doesn't get passed right away. You'll see it, point guard coming down the floor, and all of a sudden they stop and they already step forward, and then their pivot foot comes off because they want to throw it to somebody, and they don't throw it right away, and everybody else travels.
Yeah.
Until they put it back down. So, it's a tough one, but it happens all the time.
I always have this like mental picture in my mind when somebody in the crowd yells travel, especially when we have that slide play. Like I want somebody to slide like free throw line to free throw line and us just watch it and be like, nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yep.
So I don't know.
Yeah, because nothing on that. I mean, I know the common thing is people they think, because I've seen the comments before on many different situations on Facebook, whatever. Oh, that's not travel. They can take 2 steps. No, they really can't take 2 steps, and it's all about the pivot foot. Pivot foot, once it's lifted, you have to either pass, shoot before it comes to the floor, and that's pretty much all that is. So
right. I mean, thinking of it simply, let's think of a layup. If we go left, right, release, right? That's a legal play. If we went left, right, and that left came back down before the ball's out of your hand, now we have a travel. So that's kind of the simplest way to think about that, I guess, in people's heads.
Agreed.
So,
Yeah.
anything else on that, Jim?
No, I mean, there's lots of things I think we can talk about on the traveling. I mean, I'm sitting here looking at my rule book on my phone on traveling, and there's like 3 pages of it. So,
Yeah.
I mean, so many different scenarios. So it's tough. And if you ever want to, look it up, it's in section 4, I believe, or section 44 in the rule book, and it's traveling. And there's all kinds of stuff in there under the definitions. So I'll look it up because some of it you might not understand if you haven't refereed many games, but it's all there.
I think a good future podcast topic maybe is the jump stop and how that kind of works with travel and spin moves and things like that, right? Because we can jump stop with 1 foot and then another one come down. We can jump stop with 2, so there's variations of that I think are confusing to people and maybe officials and maybe even coaches, right? So I think that's something we probably ought to touch base on some.
Yeah, because that's the one that I probably should have mentioned, because that's another thing on the gathering. So if we have a true jump stop, we have somebody who has gathered the ball, jumped off their pivot foot, and now landed on 2 simultaneously, which is legal. But now they don't have a pivot foot. If either foot is moved, we have basically, without shooting the ball or passing it, if either foot comes off the floor, we now have a trap. I mean, if they don't shoot the ball or pass it. So, that's one that doesn't happen as much anymore. But if somebody who has a good jump stop, if they gather, jump off the pivot foot, land on both feet simultaneously, same time, they no longer have a pivot foot. If they jump off that foot and jump 1, 2, right, left, it's travel automatically. But you got to make sure when they gather the ball.
Yep.
Good stuff, Jim.
I think I want to talk about a play that I heard about or actually saw before we kind of move on here. But just kind of one of the things that we hear or see from other folks, or, maybe we saw it in person, whatever, just the weird things that we kind of discuss when we see it. So I was watching a game where I think we're under a minute left in the game. Close game, maybe a 2-point game. A team scores to either tie it or it's within 2. And so the non-scoring team now has the ball out of bounds, can run the baseline, and the clock is running as that all happens, right? Because in high school, we don't stop that clock. The official was looking for a timeout, which in that situation as an official is good to look for a timeout. However, there was not one called, and the official thought one was called. So we had an inadvertent whistle. Talked a lot about this, like what's the actual way to do this? And unfortunately, the only support that the rule book has is with an inadvertent whistle, we're just going to go to point of interruption. So the team that didn't score, that now has the ball, technically lost probably, maybe 7 or 8 seconds when you think about the time from when the ball goes through the net to when they gather it, get out of bounds, and then they have their 5 seconds to inbounds that ball. So, there's some time that could have elapsed. And because of that inadvertent whistle, now they have the ball. They can still run on the inbounds, but the clock is stopped. They still have the 5 seconds, but the clock isn't running. So they kind of got screwed on the clock situation on that one. So I guess the point coming out of that is just make sure as an official that we also see and hear the timeout. And I think we've discussed that as a crew after we kind of discussed that. Even on jump balls sometimes, I'm pretty patient with that because I'll hear it and then I'll have to look at the coach and see that he has it. So at the time the jump ball happened, we did have a held ball, and then I made sure we had an actual timeout before we called it. So sometimes coaches will get grumpy. Well, you didn't call it fast enough. Well, I've got to make sure we have an actual physical timeout by you. So anyway, just kind of wanted to throw that out there as a weird play we saw recently.
I think one thing we do, we've all been around the game enough that we kind of know when somebody's going to want a timeout. You just know when somebody gets on that 8-0, 10-0 run.
Right.
And if you're the trail moving a new lead, and I first look at that team that just went down by 8 points or whatever, knowing that the coach is probably going to want a timeout. So in that situation there, I would have been looking for, when that ball went through the hoop, I'd have been looking for the team that was behind, possibly, if they're wanting it, and if not, we're moving on. But yeah, I think that's situational awareness.
Yep. And we all make mistakes, and I know that official, and I know he didn't mean to do that, but something to learn from for sure.
Yeah, happens.
I think here, before we talk about our upcoming schedule then and wrap up, I think now would be a good time to just talk about a few things that we've seen or maybe had happen in the last month or so that we've been off, just because there's been kind of some stuff.
Yeah, Ben, why don't you start?
Which one do you want to start with?
I don't
Video?
care.
All right, so let's talk about, not every official's changing room is made the same, right?
True.
Some places, brand new building, fantastic spaces, may have a clock in there for us. Others might have, been from the 60s. Let's take a look at one. I'm not going to say where it's at, but here's one that we had recently.
I love the checkered floor.
Oh, not only that, this wood paneling is top notch.
Vintage.
The blind looks nice there too.
Well, so
the windows are insulated by snow. You can't tell.
And the blind was moving because the wind was blowing through there.
What'd you find in the bathroom, Ben?
A wasp nest.
And
then
I don't think it was active. Not
no,
this time
luckily
of year.
not active. And then there were like 2 mud dauber nests underneath that blind that you just commented on. Jim, I do in this room also. There's a couple things I wanted to point out about this.
Yeah.
Can you tell the audience what this is up here? The speaker looking thing?
Oh, I'm sure that's like the intercom for the school.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good, Jim.
We had them in ours before. You get the new phone system and you don't need them anymore. Ours are all torn out, but yeah, that's exactly.
Yeah. So I think down below there's actually a button. So that's the old push button intercom that probably went out to everywhere, didn't it, Jim?
Usually if you push the button, it usually went to the office. The office could speak to everybody, but you could just speak to the office.
Gotcha.
Jim remembers hearing Jim Crozier report to the principal's office.
Were those prevalent like in the 60s when you were in school?
I didn't go to the schools in any year of the 60s. I started in 70 though.
Okay. So not only in that room, I don't know if you noticed that can of spray underneath that speaker. I want to point this out because we had a lot of discussion about this. I don't know what this is.
Never seen it.
Another funny part about this before I'm going to zoom in because I feel like this is probably a product that should only be in warehouses. When Sam read this, he said, "Disinfectant deodorant the second."
How would you read it, Junior?
So here's the close-up of what this spray can does. That's sitting, mind you, with something in it in our ref room. And I'll just go to the meat of this. Kills herpes simplex virus type 1 and type 2 and HIV AIDS on environmental hard surfaces. kills pandemic H1N1 influenza A virus. Excellent for veterinarian and professional grooming tools and equipment. Why is this in a school?
And this obviously has to be pre-COVID because it would probably have that on there if it kills COVID too, I would assume.
Well, yeah, but like, why are
Well,
people
basically,
like,
it does everything but melt your skin off.
it might melt your skin off. We don't know.
I didn't try it.
But I feel like if you added that maybe to your Revelton, maybe COVID wouldn't have been an issue. I mean, the cure was sitting right there in that school this whole time.
Yeah.
Or you might not have woken up again.
Which would have cured COVID.
Yeah. Let's see here. We already showed the AED. How about this one? This was recently.
Bolt cutters in the room in case we needed to get out quick.
Those things were heavy.
Not only that, that's kind of the wrestling coach / weigh-in area near the weight room. And I'm pretty sure that night was roughly 98 degrees in there.
Oh, that might be a little too cool for what it was.
Yeah.
Maybe 104.
It was warm.
There were some other pictures surrounding the bolt cutters, but I didn't feel like it was good for social media at this point.
Probably
That's
should.
probably good.
Yeah.
It's probably good.
Kind of sort of a family show a little bit.
Have we had any fan issues in the last month, Jim?
Any
Sam?
what?
Issues with fans?
Oh no, I don't think we've had a whole lot, have we?
Are you sure?
Oh,
Everybody sits and watches the game and agrees with all the calls. It's
So
great.
we clearly aren't getting out to enough people because there was a fan that Jim. What did you tell him? If he says another word, he's got to go.
yeah.
How old do you think that gentleman was?
75.
He's sitting front row, right? Yelling at
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
So Jim was just warning him essentially. And he decided to get up and leave, walked out of the gym.
Yep.
The awesome part about all of that is that the crowd clapped. And I don't know if they clapped because that guy was leaving or if they were clapping for that guy against you. Either way, it was fantastic.
I'm going to say they were clapping for that guy, but
The funny part about that is I was on the opposite side of the court. So then, Ben, you switched out with Jim. Jim comes over to me, and I'm looking at the guy leaving, and I go, "You just tossed that guy?" He goes, "No, I just warned him." I said, "No, you just tossed him.
and I did.
He's leaving."
I even told the AD, I don't want to. If he says another word, he's leaving. That was it. I mean, it was just, hey, if you're going to sit in the front row for the last 3 minutes, please don't yell at the officials every single time they come in front of you. Okay, your $5 or $6 or $7, whatever you're paying now to get in, does not give you the right to scream and yell at us all the time. Okay,
Maybe you were a little sensitive, Jim.
we could take a little bit, but it gets a little much when you do it for 3 minutes straight.
Fair. Also, I do have a comment, and I'm producing now, so I want to show this, but
Oh no.
Oh boy.
I don't have them loaded up. I'm not that good yet, but we'll see. We'll see. Let's ship our owner, old producer. He's awesome. So Sam, you mentioned sensitive, I think was the word.
Yeah,
you
I thought maybe Jim was being a little sensitive about that.
Okay. So I feel like there was a game recently, Sam, where did you give a technical to a head coach?
Yeah, I do recall doing that. Yeah.
What happened?
Well, it kind of goes back to previous encounters that I've had with him, and really, he just kind of decided that we weren't going to get along, and there was a play that he thought there was contact on his kid, and he got frustrated and said, "You've got to get their hands off." And I said, "Well, coach, the defense had an arm bar and your player initiated the contact. So how can I punish the defense?" "Well, you got to do something about it." And he kept going. And I said, "Listen, coach, I will look for it." Thinking that was going to be my break. Right. Well,
Yep.
no, he didn't want that to be my break. So he kept going and going. And so then I just politely said, "Coach, just coach your kids." Well, then he had to say something to me that wasn't very nice. And then I gave him a technical.
So, were there any more words about this situation later in the game?
Well, I pretended not to hear it. After I gave him the technical, he proceeded to then call me sensitive. So instead of saying anything or doing anything, I just let that go in one ear and out the other. I let him vent, and I walked away.
That's a good plan. I like it.
Yeah. Good job being the bigger man there, walking away.
So maybe I was sensitive.
Do you think coaches or officials hold grudges?
For a certain time.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah. Yeah.
I think we probably all have a coach or two in our mind that maybe we don't look forward to working with because of something in the past or because we just don't get along.
Right.
Would that be fair?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm certain coaches feel the same way.
Yeah, no doubt.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, so let's kind of continue down that road. Jim, have you tossed any other fans recently?
Yeah, I think we had a double one there just recently, didn't we?
Oh,
Yeah.
I got involved for once.
Yeah. So the ball was passed down the sideline, my sideline there, and one of the kids from the opposed visiting team knocks the ball out of bounds. And there might have been some slight contact. And I mean, when I say slight contact, he brushed up against his jersey. And ball's out of bounds on that team. I mean, so the home team's still getting the ball. And a couple of their fans kind of went crazy. A guy who had been yelling most of the game, and "That's just terrible." All I did was turn around to look to see. I wasn't even going to say anything. I just wanted them to know that I knew they were there. And all of a sudden, another guy pipes up and says, "It was me. I said it." And I said, "You're going to have to go." And he says, "F you" to me. So then all of a sudden, Ben's coming over and he's saying, "You're out of here. You got to go." And I'm like, "I already got him, Ben." I didn't realize honestly, I didn't realize till I think we got in the locker room that we threw two different guys out.
Yeah. So I think, and Sam, you probably can talk to this since you were opposite of both of us on that play. I think our whistles were nearly simultaneous. And I was paying attention to the guy I was tossing, and you were paying attention to the guy you were tossing. And like, same. I don't know that I was like, "Oh, that just happened." So my guy had kind of been a pain in the butt all night, just something all the time. And the team that he was rooting for had coughed up a lead, and I think he was frustrated. And I think he said something about "you're terrible." And I don't necessarily think we need to toss every fan that tells us that we're terrible, but this guy had been an issue all night. And we let it go. But at that point, finally, it was enough. And so I just went tweet. I said, "You're gone." And told the AD, said, "Get him out of here." And that was that. He didn't yell "F you" at me. I kind of expected it because he was coming right down by me. I thought, "Oh boy, here we go." But good on you, Jim, for getting that out of somebody.
Yeah, I mean, I just like I said, I was just turning around. I just wanted to, let them know that, hey, I'm listening to you, and that's it. And I just, as I turn around and I look, this guy just says, "It was me," and I'm like, I didn't think it came from that area. And then I said, "Then you're going to have to go." And he, like I said, he says, "F you," and that's when it's like, "Yep, you are definitely going now." So, there's no place for that. And in high school athletics, I don't even care if it's college athletics or whatever, but there's no place for that, and we wonder why sometimes we have some issues with some of our players, because more than likely most of those are parents. So the kids are seeing that and they're thinking it's okay. And it's just not. It's not.
Yep.
Okay.
We could spend a whole podcast talking about fan behavior. And the things we've heard and seen. So I don't know. I just kind of wanted to point those out as kind of some funny things that have happened to us recently. And it's not like we're rabbit ears and listening to every single fan that's out there screaming, because obviously there's a ton of fans screaming, but at some point enough is enough, and we have to take care of business. And in both cases, we probably should have went to the AD first. But it happened so quick, we just kind of took it into our own hands.
From my perspective on the opposite side of the floor, you both had whistles, and then I thought you two were pointing at the same guy. And then I see two separate guys come down, and I literally thought maybe one was going to get popcorn. Like I thought, wow, this is just bad timing for this guy going to get a popcorn or go to the bathroom. But turns out it was two separate. So,
I think when the fan behavior overshadows what's going on the floor, then it becomes too much.
Yep.
When you are constantly yelling, and it's yelling at the top of your lungs on different plays, and it's taking away from the game. I mean, it just does. I mean, that needs to go, and we need to be fans for our team and have fun while you're there.
Yep. And I think that's part of why we do this podcast too, is we want to educate.
Absolutely.
Fool's rules, right? Like, that's perfect, is we're trying to educate folks so they don't make these mistakes and they don't yell things that they don't know what the hell they're talking about.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I understand that, we have chosen, obviously, to put ourselves in this position and do this. But if you just do the old reversal, right? Like, so put them in our position, okay? And then we're screaming at them. I mean, it's like, it's not good for anybody, just like Jim said. I mean, they don't know, we're dads, we're grandpas, we're brothers. It's like they don't think about that stuff.
Right. I mean, we don't go out there to try to make the fans mad. Are we going to miss calls? We've talked about this probably in every podcast. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. We're not going out there to intentionally miss a call or to favor one team or the other. We go into the game, we call the game. We don't care who's playing and that. So, people just have to realize that we're human. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to want to limit those mistakes because we want it to be a good, called, clean game. But if a play happens and you didn't think it was what you thought it should have been, move on. Because everybody else, usually the coaches and the players, for the most part, are moving on to the next play. Yep. We got fans who just want to go on and on and on. I hope when I say that not every fan out there thinks that, oh God, officials think fans are terrible. No, 95% of you are excellent. Excellent. Mm-hmm. We know this, that 5%, the people, when they're acting like they are, that 5% seems huge at that time. Because most of the fans are very good. And we, how many times we run off the floor and fans tell us, even maybe from the opposing team, great job tonight, or the team that lost possibly. So, we appreciate you. We know the game wouldn't be like it is if you weren't there. So we're glad you're there.
Absolutely.
I've always thought of this two ways. Like, one, I would love every parent fan to have to ref a junior high basketball like quarter or half or something, right?
Agreed.
That'd be
Just
awesome.
put themselves in that situation and be like, holy crap, right?
Yeah.
The other is this kind of reminds me of the old Office linebacker commercials, but like I'd love to go like to somebody's work, like let's just say the bank, and scream at them, "You were terrible at that spreadsheet."
Yeah.
Can't you count that money faster?
right.
Wouldn't it feel good? I've got all this pent up rage from being yelled at. I just want to yell.
Yeah, you know, like, yeah, go yell at somebody for their welding job that I know nothing about,
Right.
Yeah.
which most of the fans that are yelling know nothing about.
Yes.
Dictating, the ones that are yelling. So it's like, yeah, you know, I just can't imagine me going somewhere else and doing that. But you know, it's not something that's new. So
No.
But it's awesome that we can joke and laugh about
Yeah.
it though, too.
yeah,
And that's the hard part about being an official is you're going to have to deal with that crap, and sometimes it's deserved and a lot of times it's not. But we did have one more first, I think, at one of these locations, Jim, where you had a little tussle with who?
tussle.
The announcer?
Oh, I forgot that was on here. So I'm by the table again. We're not we make sure we don't mention schools. We don't want to make anybody feel bad or anything. But I'm over by the bench, and there's a play going on opposite way.
I had a foul.
Yeah, and it, you know, we are pretty patient with our whistles and with what we're calling. Well, the announcer didn't think that Ben was calling a foul. He thought he was just calling out of bounds, and he is yelling about the play, just yelling at him. You got to make that call, blah blah blah. And I turned around because I'm like, that's coming from the bench. I didn't know who it was, but I turned around and I said, who is yelling? And he says, he says to me, I said, you are at the bench. You're supposed to be, unbiased and not yelling at the officials. And he goes, oh, all it was cheering for our team. I said, that's not cheering for your team. And then it was at the end of the quarter. I happened to be right there again, right by the bench. And I come by and he shook my hand and apologized for it. Great. And I know we all get excited about things, but man, when you're in that position, when you're a bench personnel, you got to just take it and go on and do your job, just like we're doing our job. I mean, I don't turn around and yell at the clock person if they didn't set the clock on time or something. We just blow a whistle and say, hey, how much we need to take 3 seconds off or whatever. Not a big deal, but so they can't do that either.
At least
What
you
I
didn't get called sensitive.
No, he didn't call me sensitive.
Sensitive Sam. What I loved about it too is like that announcer is like the most professional
Oh, he's great.
like announcer voice around. Like
Yeah.
he met us pregame, made sure he had all our names correct. He told us where he was going to have subs and what the bench was going to do with the subs. And it was just like almost like the best of, announcing job I'd ever seen.
Yeah.
And then he pulls that and I was like, what is happening?
Yeah. Yeah. He like yelled twice and I'm like, I'm just, I've got my back to the bench at the time. I'm like, that's coming from the bench, from our scores table. And it's like, oh, okay. So, yeah, like I said, they happen, and I think I turned around and said, politely said, we can't have that over here. I didn't scream and yell at him, but, yeah, we it's fun that we can all laugh and have fun about it afterwards. And, he apologized for it. That's great. So it is what it is. And we
It's
don't
the
know.
day in our life.
Yeah, it
Hey,
is.
Jim, are you going to move on from it?
I think so because I forgot kind of all about it till he said, "Is there one more thing?" Yeah, I know.
Hey,
It is.
you know what? Let's move on.
It is what it is.
All right. Should we wrap up here?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
let's do it.
Upcoming schedule. Friday, 26th here we got coming up. Sam and I are heading to Carroll to work with Casey Pelzer, friend of the podcast.
Casey.
And Jim is not with us. So that's good. Just kidding. Just kidding, Aunt Marilyn.
Birthday party.
How come I'm not going that night? Oh, because it's like 3 hours for me.
Oh yeah.
No,
probably.
birthday party or Christmas or yeah.
That's
Early Valentine's Day.
Yeah, St. Patty's Day.
Saturday, I'm working on one game with Tim and Bryant, Johnston and Liberty, kind of CIML MVC challenge here at Northwest. And then next week, I think will be one of our most fun nights of the year, maybe at Earlham.
Know a lot of coaches very well.
And against I-35, and that'll be a good time. We know them all really super well. I'm sure there'll be a lot of joking. It'll be serious too, but I think we'll have a lot of fun, and we'll see how that goes if we have any stories from that night. And then because we've been off so long because of reschedules and blizzards and different things, we're going to do our podcast again next week. So just a week from tonight, we're going to do our next one to get back on schedule. We wanted to keep a certain schedule every 2 Wednesdays. So this gets us back on that for something hopefully we have coming down the road here. So,
well, I mean, I know Aunt Marilyn, I'm going to tell you, he doesn't really like me that well because I have games also on here that I'm not with these guys, but they don't put them on the schedule because I'm going to South Tama.
Could you tell us about those, Jim?
Yeah, I'm going to South Tama on Friday, going to the Little Roundhouse.
That's right.
Vitten Shellsburg. And then I got a call to do a makeup game on Saturday, one game at Montezuma, 3:00. So
You're not busy?
Yeah. No, I don't have. I'm done with birthdays and Christmases, guys. So I'm free, except for I've got home games. Still got at least one home game at Melcher, and hopefully another one if our girls get a home game at Southeast Warren for regional, since we don't have a gym. But we're gonna have a gym next year. Come see it.
We're opening that puppy up.
Yes, we're going to have I know it's not called the Pride scrimmages anymore. Now I can't think of what they're called, but we're going to have a scrimmage early on, and we're going to have us three are going to officiate that scrimmage. So we're going to be the first three to officiate a basketball game in the new gym.
Awesome.
Nice.
Yeah.
Ben, you were going to say something other than puppy.
I don't know what you're talking about, Sam. Sam, you got asked to do a game Saturday too, right? But you've got kids you're coaching.
Yes. Yep. I did.
So, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Shout out to Liam. Big 30
Yeah.
dropped 36 points last week.
Yeah,
Dropping
dropping
36.
36 points in a second grade basketball league. That's
Somerset Parks and Rec.
not bad.
Not bad at all. Even if
Right.
even if his kids call me grandpa.
Yeah. Uncle Ben and Grandpa Jim.
That's right. Hopefully next week we will have a special guest. I'm working on that still. And hopefully that'll help lead to some future plans we have down the road here. But I don't want to spoil anything until we get that locked down. So,
Awesome.
all right.
Cool. Well,
Good
hey,
to
we'll sign
be
off.
back, guys.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you to Three Beards Media, Revelton, and Gravitate Co-working Studio for supporting us. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
See you guys.
See ya.